Hey guys, what's going on? And today I'm going to be bringing you the deck that I'm going to be playing going into OP03, and that is going to be Katakuri. So Katakuri is a very interesting leader where he gives you so much information and value off of one Don that it's actually insane. So his effect reads Don times 1 when attacking. Look at up to one card from the top of your or your opponent's life cards, and then place that card at the top or bottom of the life area. Then this leader gains plus 1k power during this battle. So he allows you to play a lot more Don efficiently, being able to swing for 7 for 1 Don instead of 2 like most leaders, or just being able to swing 8 into like Whitebeard or any of the 6k characters for 2 Don. He also gives you a lot of information by just looking into your life and knowing where your triggers are, so you can reorder those triggers effectively and to where you want them to be, as well as ordering your opponent's triggers, so the triggers like jet pistols or crossfires or sea quakes can go at the bottom and you know that they're there, so you're able to play around them a little more efficiently. So the first card we're going to talk about is going to be Sanji. So Sanji's going to be a 2-drop 3k character with a 2k counter that reads Don times 2 when attacking. You may add the top or bottom card of your life to your hand, and then add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to your life. So Sanji essentially just says when he attacks, you draw a card. That's the big thing with Sanji. He's really good, especially early game when you're playing into decks like Kinemon or Zoro, where he can just go ahead and he can go heads up with some of the small drop characters. Next up is going to be Charlotte Smoothie. This is one of those cards that I have a love-hate relationship with, just because it's a very powerful card, just being able to essentially draw a card and gain plus 2k power. But the problem that I have with this card is the fact that it doesn't replace itself like Sanji does. However, just being able to swing, take 1 of your own life, essentially drawing yourself a card, and then swinging for 7 is actually very powerful. And it's probably going to be one of those very underrated cards in the deck. But she is a 4-drop 5k character, so she swings even with all of your 5 life leaders, with 1k counter that reads, when attacking, you may add 1 card from the top or bottom of your life area to your hand, and this card gains plus 2000 power during this battle. It also has a trigger that says that you may discard 1 card from your hand and then play this card. So if you hit it off a trigger, you're playing it for free, and you're also drawing a card when you swing with her, if you so choose. Next up is going to be the heart and soul of this deck. Is going to be Charlotte Pudding. She is your 1-drop searcher. So she reads, look at the top 4 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 Big Mom Pirates type card other than Charlotte Pudding, or up to 1 Sanji, and add it to your hand. Then place the rest at the bottom of the deck in any order. So she's your heart and soul. She pretty much runs the deck. You very rarely whiff. If you do whiff, you probably constructed the deck wrong, but she's just a solid searcher. She searches pretty much everything in your deck minus the Shiryushi and the 2k pudding, but that's where Parasparrow comes in. And Parasparrow is a 3-drop 5k that reads, on KO, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 Big Mom Pirates type card and add it to your hand, and then place the rest at the bottom of the deck in any order. He also has a trigger that reads, you may discard 1 card, play this card from your hand. So Parasparrow pretty much just fills in where Pudding lacks. So he's able to grab the 2k Pudding if you need it. He's also able to grab any of your other Big Mom Pirate cards. You are pretty much always, like, I don't always let this card die, but when I do let this card get KO'd, he usually searches one of the big drops, so either my 7, my 8, or my 10 drop. Or if it's late in the game, I'll search a 2k counter if I need it. Next up is going to be Charlotte Linlin. She is going to be your boss. She is your biggest bomb in your deck, and she's your best bomb in the deck. And she reads on play, if your leader has big mom pirates typing, place one card from the top of your deck at the top or bottom of your life area, and then you can trash up to one card from your opponent's life. So she essentially allows you to force your opponent to take a life while you regain a life, which is very strong in this game, especially if you're playing into a 4 life leader or you're playing into a 5 life leader and that 5 life leader has 1 or 2 life left. Then you can take big swings. Most of your characters are swinging at 5k or higher. Very few of them are going to be swinging under 5k, just base. So you'll be able to rip cards out of their hand like no other, and then you're going to be able to force them to attack differently, because they're going to have to swing 7 into a lot of your characters in order to get them off of the board. And you play enough 2k and 1k counters that them swinging 5s isn't really going to make that much of a difference. Next up is going to be Strusen. He is a 1-drop 1k with 2k counter that reads, on play you may trash 1 card with trigger from your hand and KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 1 or less. So when I initially saw this card, I thought it would be very strong going into Zoro. Just because, you play it, it's essentially like a 1-drop Vista, or a Vista for 1-drops, which it is in a way, but the cost is too steep. Meaning you're discarding really good cards to pop a 1-drop. So you're pretty much just giving up 1 Don and 2 cards to get rid of a 1-drop, which I don't necessarily like. Playing into like Nami, it's a little better because they're not gonna just KO it the next turn. It'll stick on board, and you can use it to swing into other things if you need it. But 1k, you're gonna have to invest a lot of Don into it in order to get it to swing at 5k into a leader or into anything else. So I pretty much only use this card as a 2k counter. I did use it in my last video that came out before this one, as a way to pop a I think it was a Kaya on the Nami players board, but that was just because I know he wasn't going to kill it, and if they did remove it from the field, it would either be returned to my hand or it would be bounced to the bottom of the deck. But since Nami doesn't really swing, I wasn't really going to use it as a 2k counter. So next up is going to be Shiryoshi. She's a 5-drop 0k with 1k counter, and on play she draws 3 cards and trashes 2 cards, and then she has a trigger that says play this card. So essentially, if you're a Yu-Gi-Oh player, this is your graceful charity for the deck. You're pretty much only using her out of trigger. You're never really investing 5 down to play this card. In hand, she's mostly just a 1k counter. That's the most use you're going to get out of her, is her trigger or a 1k counter. You're never really going to play her. Her having no attack just makes her very weak to everything else. So like your opponent can easily out it, and they're not going to out this card. They're just going to let it stick because there's no reason to out something that's not a threat. Next up is going to be the 8-drop Katakuri. This is going to be the secret rare out of OP03. So he reads on play, put up to 1 character with a cost of 8 or less at the top or bottom of its owner's life area. So yes, you can use this on your characters as well as your opponent's characters. There's never really a time that I would actually use this on my characters unless I was putting a blocker at the bottom of my life. So that way when we got to the point where my opponent's swinging and they have 1 or 2 swings, I can take the life, play the blocker. That is the only time I could ever see myself using his effect on my life. Mostly I use him to get rid of things like the 4-drop blocker Marco, or getting rid of, in the mirror, the 8-drop Katakuri, the 7-drop Big Moms. I use him to get rid of Kaya's and owner Zev's in the blue matchup, because if you drop him one turn, you leave it at the top of their life, they're going to be more inclined to take that life, so that way they can draw that Kaya. But then on your 10 Don turn, you can just drop the Big Mom and the Kaya goes straight to the trash. You can also use it to get rid of any rushers or anything. If you're playing in the kid, like, this is very strong into kid, because if they drop the 8-drop kid, you can just bottom life it and then force them to take it as their last life, which has no counter. So then when you do go for a big swing, they have to figure out a way to out it. Next up is going to be the 4-drop Katakuri. So we do play 3 of this. This card reads, on play, look at the top of your life or your opponent's life and either put the card at the top or bottom of the life area. And then if you have less life cards than your opponent, this character gains rush. So usually what I like to do with this card is I will take my first life when I'm playing a 5-life leader, and then I'll immediately play this card on my 4 Don or 5 Don turn, so I can get a 6k swing in, and then swing 7 with my leader. Mostly just to peel out 2k counters early, and then force them to swing into it, on their next turn, because they're not going to leave this card without at least attempting to get rid of it, because it is a 6k body. This body is very sticky, but it also goes very well into Whitebeard, just because he is a 6k. He is a 6k vanilla into Whitebeard, because they will always have less life than you. Next up is going to be Charlotte Brule. Brule is a 3-drop 1k blocker with 1k counter. The biggest reason that you play this card is because of its trigger effect that says play this card. It's very strong out of life. I've put it at the bottom of my life several times. I've hit, in some games, I've hit like 2 or 3 of these out of life. And my friend is like, how do I always do it? I don't know. Brule is just a very strong blocker with that trigger for this deck specifically. Next up is going to be Charlotte Pudding. She's literally just a 2-drop 3k with 2k counter. I'd never really put her on board. I don't really use her effect. I rather just use the effect of the 4-drop Katakuri or my leader than play her. She gets more value out of being a 2k counter than anything. And then I played 2 of the 7-drop Big Mom. I have tested 4 of this, and I really do like it at 4. However, there are some times where having 4 of the 7-drop, 4 of the 10-drop, and 3 of the 8-drop, and 3 or 4 of the 4-drop, all with no counter, plus the Parasparrows, like, there are some times where, like, your hand just gets clogged with no counter, and there's not much you can do about it. I mean, early game, it's really good because you get to put big sticky bodies on board. You get to force your opponent to waste Don, but once you get into the late game, when you're looking for those 2k counters, though drawing into those big bodies just sucks. So I had to cut down on the ratio for her, and instead of playing 4, I now play 2, and I did a even split with the 8 and the 4-drop. Next up is going to be Ikoku Sovereignty, or Ikoku Sovereignty. This card is actually insane. It's a counter that gives your leader or character plus 5k during battle, and then it has a trigger of discard 2 cards, then add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to your life. That card is very strong, especially when your opponent thinks that they have game, and they're swinging efficiently, where you can drop 2 cards that have no counter out of your hand and then replace them, or replace 1 of your life. So then, if your opponent needs 3 swings, they now need 4, and if they've already burned up 2 swings and they only have 2 swings left, they're not going to get through, or they won't be able to kill you that turn. They may be able to take like your entire life, but they won't be able to kill you, and it just makes your opponent play a little differently, because they have to know that trigger is a thing. And it takes a lot of players by surprise. And last but not least is going to be my favorite yellow event card right now, is going to be Thunderbolt. This is essentially yellow's jet pistol. So this card says you may trash 1 card from the top of your life, and then KO one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less, with a trigger of just KO one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. So this card is actually insane. When you're playing into those decks that have those unkillable blockers like black, or when you're playing into the red decks that play the 4-drop Marco, just because once they swing into life, if they hit this, you just KO it. It doesn't have a life restrict or a power restriction like Jet Pistol, so you're able to just go ahead and get rid of those cards that are going to be there on your turn, so your blockers, or you can force your opponent to drop cards out of their hand by KOing like a Marco, the 5-drop Marco, or you can force your opponent to swing differently by KOing one of their active characters that is an attacker that is 5 cost or less. So this is just a very, very powerful event, and I think that this is going to be the most underrated card of the entire deck. Alright guys, thank you for tuning in to this deck profile. Again, I appreciate all of you guys watching this. If you guys liked the video, please leave a comment, like, subscribe, and leave in the comments the changes that you would make to this list.